Have you ever woken up feeling mysteriously drained, as though some unseen force silently robbed you of your drive and focus overnight? You might blame a hectic schedule or stressful deadlines, but what if the culprit is something far more subtle, far more common, and something society often brushes aside as totally normal? This silent drain could be the single biggest reason you're stuck in a loop of low motivation, fragile confidence, and an endless chase for a reward that never truly satisfies. Think about it. Every day, countless people feel trapped by the exact same habit they're told is harmless. Yet whispers and rumors from ancient philosophers, modern celebrities, and even some cutting-edge studies suggest there's a darker side most ignore, one capable of sapping ambition, eroding self-esteem, and sinking you into a cycle of endless chasing. If you've ever suspected there must be more to life than the fleeting gratification that leaves you feeling hollow minutes later, you're not alone. And if you're ready to see how a centuries-old insight from some of the greatest minds in history can help you break free and unleash a version of yourself you never knew you had, then keep watching, because in the next few minutes, you're going to discover exactly why this everyday habit can quietly sabotage your progress, and how tapping into the wisdom of ancient Stoics like Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius can flip the script on your life. By the end, you won't just know how to cut the cord on this destructive cycle. You'll see how redirecting your energy might be the missing key to unstoppable creativity, ironclad discipline, and the unshakable confidence you've been craving. But I have to warn you, once you understand the hidden cost behind this daily indulgence, you can't unsee it. You'll notice it everywhere, and you'll understand exactly why the greatest men in history warned against letting pleasurable distractions derail you. So let's dive in and discover the hidden side of a habit that might be costing you far more than you realize. Section 1. The quiet habit nobody talks about. For a moment, ignore everything you've heard, that it's harmless, that it's normal, that everyone does it. Because here's a truth most people never discuss. Countless historical figures, philosophers, emperors, generals, went out of their way to warn against letting this single act become a routine. They believed it sapped not just your physical vitality, but something deeper, your emotional resilience, your mental clarity, your sense of purpose. Modern culture, on the other hand, tells a very different story. From medical experts claiming it can reduce stress or promote relaxation, to media outlets labeling it a rite of passage, you've probably heard it's not just safe, it's healthy. Yet behind the scenes, you'll find stories from men who swear that once they quit this habit, their energy levels skyrocketed, their focus sharpened, and they felt a jolt of determination they'd never experienced before. Is it possible that something so widely accepted could also be quietly robbing millions of their drive and self-worth? The ancient Stoics believed so, and they weren't the only ones. Fast forward to modern times, and you'll hear whispers that CEOs, top athletes, and brilliant inventors have all experimented with abstaining from this habit, crediting it for their laser-like concentration and sheer willpower. But that's not the whole story. Rumors, of course, can be exaggerated or flat-out false. Some people will tell you they see no impact whatsoever, dismissing the entire conversation as much ado about nothing. Others argue that if it makes you feel good temporarily, what's the harm? As these debates swirl, one thing becomes clearer with every testimonial. For many, this everyday indulgence can become a crutch, a source of instant pleasure but long-term regret. And each time, it gets a little harder to resist. Section 2. Modern science versus ancient warning. Before we dive deeper, let's talk about the science. The human brain is wired to seek pleasure. Dopamine, that feel-good chemical, rewards you when you do something that's supposedly beneficial to survival, eating, socializing, and so on. But here's the catch. Certain habits hijack that dopamine pathway, delivering a burst of satisfaction with very little effort. Over time, your brain gets used to this fast reward and starts craving it whenever you're bored, stressed, or simply seeking a quick escape. You might think, so what? It's just a burst of dopamine. But modern researchers have found that when you repeatedly indulge in quick fixes, your motivation for bigger, more challenging goals can drop. Why bother chasing a long-term reward, like building a career, mastering a skill, or forging a deep relationship, when your brain can get its dopamine rush right now? It's exactly this scenario that the Stoics, in their own way, warned about thousands of years ago. While they didn't have neurobiology to back it up, they observed that men who gave in to their desires without restraint ended up lethargic, irritable, and oddly dissatisfied with life. They wrote about it as a form of self-imposed slavery. If you can't control your impulses, you're not truly free. Today, debates rage about whether the Stoics took it too far. Some argue that they suppressed normal human instincts, while others see it as a mental blueprint for living a powerful, purpose-driven life. No matter which side you're on, it's hard to ignore how often these teachings come up in the stories of individuals who overcame destructive patterns, be it addiction, procrastination, or an endless cycle of short-lived pleasure. Section 3. Harmless habit or secret confidence killer. If you've ever felt an emotional hangover after indulging, maybe guilt, regret, or a sense of lost time, then you already have a hint of what might be going on. Many men claim that the aftermath of this habit leaves them feeling depleted. The drive to chase real success, to face challenges with courage, can fade if your brain keeps saying, "You've already got your reward." The real harm may not be physical at all. It could be psychological. When you rely on something external for an instant pick-me-up, you subtly teach yourself that you need a quick escape each time life gets tough. Over weeks and months, that reliance can chip away at your confidence. Instead of believing you can push through adversity, you may start seeking that instant hit whenever stress flares up. High achievers throughout history, across sports, business, and the arts, frequently mention a discipline that sets them apart. Stories persist of Olympic athletes abstaining from certain pleasures during training, claiming it strengthens their resolve and fosters a competitive edge. The rumors aren't new. Even in ancient times, athletes competing in the original Olympic Games were said to practice forms of self-denial to maintain peak performance. Could it be that in a world of endless entertainment and gratification, the simple act of restraint sets you apart? Critics brush these ideas off as anecdotal. They say the difference is purely in people's heads. But as you'll see, the Stoics believed your mindset is precisely what determines whether you live as a conqueror of life's challenges or remain chained to fleeting comforts. Section 4. Stoic philosophy. Strength through discipline. Seneca famously wrote, "No man is free who is a slave to his body." It's a statement that echoes powerfully in modern times, especially if you interpret it through the lens of habits and impulses. In a world with countless distractions, it's remarkably easy to become a slave to your own desires. You might think you're making a free choice, but are you really if you can't stop? Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor who governed one of the largest empires in history, made it clear in his meditations that indulging in trivial pleasures weakens your resolve to face real battles. He believed a man who can't command himself certainly can't command others, let alone rule an empire effectively. Though few of us are emperors in the literal sense, the principle remains. Discipline in everyday life paves the way for leadership and personal mastery. Epictetus, born into slavery and later freed, became one of the most influential Stoic teachers. He taught that true power comes not from material wealth or social status, but from the ability to rule your own mind. If your mind is constantly hijacked by urges, be they cravings for junk food, mindless scrolling on social media, or yes, the habit we're discussing, then you're handing over your autonomy to external impulses. The Stoics recognized that pleasure is not inherently evil. Seneca himself enjoyed life's comforts. The difference was that they insisted on never letting these comforts control them. By regularly practicing forms of self-restraint, they built mental resilience. So when disaster struck, a military defeat, political unrest, illness, they could remain calm and act decisively. That mental toughness is exactly what many modern men say they gain when they finally confront the habit that's been sapping their energy. Section 5. rumors, controversies, and modern examples. Fast forward to today, and you'll hear countless stories of people who swear that abstaining, sometimes entirely, sometimes in moderation, from self-indulgence has transformed their lives. Some claim increased energy, heightened creativity, and stronger drive. Others go even further, linking it to rumored spikes in testosterone, enhanced attractiveness, or the almost mystical law of attraction. Big-name celebrities and entrepreneurs rarely talk about it publicly for fear of backlash or mockery. Yet speculation runs rampant on certain forums that prominent tech founders, pro athletes, and even Hollywood stars quietly credit self-restraint for their success. Are these rumors baseless? Possibly, but the sheer number of them suggests there's at least a grain of truth. Powerful, influential individuals have explored the idea that controlling sexual impulses can supercharge focus and determination. Of course, the critics are never far behind. They argue there's no hard science proving that quitting certain habits leads to superstardom. They say any benefits people feel are purely psychological or derived from the placebo effect. Yet even if it's partially true that the mind is playing tricks, that in itself is an interesting revelation. If believing you have more energy actually gives you more energy, isn't that a net positive? Psychologists point out that a sense of discipline often bleeds into other areas of life. If you prove to yourself you can resist a powerful craving, you might also find it easier to maintain a workout routine, stick to healthy eating, or push through tough projects. That kind of mental fortitude isn't trivial. Some would argue it's at the heart of every great achievement in human history. Section 6. The Dark Side. When innocent habits become traps. Let's talk about the darker side, the cycle of guilt and shame. It's one thing to enjoy a moment of pleasure, but quite another to become reliant on it for comfort whenever life feels overwhelming. Once you start using this habit as a stress response, it's easy to spiral into more frequent indulgences. The immediate relief is followed by regret, which triggers more stress, and you can see how quickly that loop forms. Many people describe feeling not quite themselves when they're stuck in this pattern. They might lose interest in activities that used to excite them or feel socially withdrawn. This isn't just about biology. It's about the stories we tell ourselves. If you repeatedly break promises to yourself, like, "This is the last time," or "I'll stop tomorrow," your self-trust erodes. Without trust in your own words, how can you confidently pursue bigger, bolder goals? That's where Stoic insight becomes invaluable. They emphasized resilience, urging followers to adopt a mindset that could face discomfort without running from it. For a Stoic in training, feeling restless or agitated was an opportunity to practice self-control, to see if they could endure discomfort with grace. They believed in facing life's challenges head-on, rather than escaping into momentary highs that leave you feeling emptier afterward. The controversy arises when modern experts suggest that any stress relief is good stress relief, no matter the source. Critics of the Stoic approach say, we shouldn't demonize normal biological functions. Fair enough. But where do we draw the line between normal release and an all-consuming dependency that strips away ambition? That's the question each of us has to answer individually. The Stoics' point was simple. If you can't say no, are you truly in control? Section 7. Replacing the habit with purpose. One of the biggest pieces of advice from those who successfully quit is to replace the habit with a meaningful pursuit. Ask yourself, what do I really want out of life? A thriving career, a fit body, a profound sense of contribution? If you're not actively working toward those, it's easy to fall back on an instant fix. A common thread in success stories is channeling pent-up energy into creative, challenging projects. Building a startup, writing a book, learning an instrument, anything that excites you enough to shift focus from easy dopamine to deep fulfillment. You might remember rumors about Nikola Tesla's lifelong celibacy, or about certain legendary martial artists who supposedly abstained from all kinds of indulgences during training. Whether these tales are completely accurate or embellished, they illustrate a fundamental truth. Directing your energies toward a higher purpose can lead to extraordinary accomplishments. The Stoics believed your life should revolve around cultivating virtue and wisdom. While they didn't shy away from pleasure entirely, they emphasized that our happiness depends more on aligning our actions with our principles than on chasing temporary highs. By orienting your daily routine around a clear mission, like honing a craft, helping others, or innovating solutions to big problems, you naturally start sidelining habits that don't serve that mission. It's not about becoming a monk or living an austere life with zero joy. Rather, it's about weighing what truly matters to you in the long run. Is that quick thrill worth sacrificing your bigger dreams? The moment you start prioritizing your purpose, fleeting indulgences begin to lose their grip. And that's when you witness a real shift in your psyche. Your self-image transforms from someone at the mercy of impulses to someone steering the ship with confidence and clarity. Section 8. Dramatic transformations. Myth or reality? If you poke around online forums, you'll find countless testimonies. Some might say too many to dismiss as mere coincidence. Stories range from men who claim they overcame chronic anxiety, to those who say their relationships improved, to still others who report skyrocketing productivity the moment they cut out daily self-pleasure. The experiences vary, but one common thread remains: the sense of taking back control. There's an element of mystery here because the changes described can be so drastic they sound unbelievable. Is it purely psychological, a placebo effect on steroids, or is there something more tangible at play, perhaps relating to hormones or energy levels we don't fully understand? Scientific evidence on the exact mechanism remains inconclusive, but that hasn't stopped researchers from speculating about the profound interplay between mind, body, and emotional well-being. And then there are the critics who argue that such claims are overblown, that correlation doesn't equal causation, and that some individuals may simply be experiencing a honeymoon phase of excitement that wears off in time. But for many, the skepticism of outsiders doesn't matter. They've experienced the results firsthand. They feel more alive, more determined, more in sync with the kind of person they want to be. They talk about not just the absence of guilt, but the emergence of a new confidence. Like a weight they never realized was there has finally been lifted. Section 9. The Stoic Strategy. Turning sacrifice into strength. So how do you actually make the leap from acknowledging the problem to fully reclaiming your power? The Stoics would tell you it starts with a simple decision. Refuse to be a slave to your impulses. Easier said than done, of course, but they provided practical steps. First, awareness. Epictetus taught that you must identify the triggers. When do you feel that strongest urge? Is it late at night, when you're bored, right after a stressful day? Recognizing these patterns is half the battle, because it brings the habit out of autopilot and into conscious view. Second, reflection. Instead of mindlessly indulging, ask yourself, what am I really seeking right now? Comfort, escape, validation? Often you'll realize the craving is a stand-in for another unmet need, like connection, achievement, or creative expression. By addressing the root of that need, calling a friend, working on a skill, tackling a passion project, you begin rewriting the script. Third, practice. The Stoics emphasized repeated, deliberate actions that strengthen your willpower. It's not enough to decide once. You have to prove to yourself again and again that you're stronger than the craving. Over time, those small victories compound. Your self-image shifts from "I always give in" to "I am in control," and that's a powerful transformation. Finally, purpose. If you're simply quitting a bad habit without filling the void, it can feel empty and unsustainable. By setting a lofty goal, something that genuinely fires you up, you create a beacon that draws you forward. This aligns perfectly with what many modern achievers claim. Once you commit to a bigger vision, self-discipline stops feeling like deprivation and starts feeling like empowerment. Section 10. When quitting feels impossible. Cracking the code of relapse. Many people quit for a few days, even weeks, only to find themselves right back where they started. This roller coaster of on-again, off-again indulgence can be disheartening, making you wonder if true freedom is ever possible. The Stoics would say, Relapses aren't the end. They're part of the learning curve. Each slip teaches you something about your triggers, your environment, and your mindset. One commonly overlooked factor is stress management. Life can throw curveballs, a job loss, a breakup, unexpected health issues. If your default reaction to stress is to seek immediate comfort, you'll be drawn back to the habit. That's why Stoic practice also involves mentally rehearsing adversity. By imagining worst-case scenarios and training yourself to remain calm, you build emotional fortitude. When real stress hits, you won't be blindsided, and you'll be less tempted to revert to coping mechanisms you've outgrown. Another element is community. Throughout history, Stoics practiced in schools or small circles, challenging each other to live virtuously. Today, you might find support through online communities or close friends who share similar goals. Having someone to check in with, or even just reading stories of people on the same path, can keep you motivated when old urges resurface. Finally, be mindful of self-criticism. If you beat yourself up for every slip, you risk spiraling into negative self-talk, which can ironically push you back toward the habit you're trying to escape. The Stoics taught the value of calm, rational introspection. Acknowledge your mistake, learn from it, and move forward without dwelling. Over time, this balanced approach can help you build the resilience you need for permanent change. Section 11. Unlocking surprising benefits beyond what you imagined. Let's assume for a moment you manage to break free from this habit for a significant period, say a month, or 3, or even a year. What changes might you notice? Sharper focus and mental clarity, without frequent dopamine spikes. From instant pleasure, your brain begins to recalibrate. Tasks you used to ignore suddenly become more engaging. You might develop the ability to work on challenging projects for longer stretches without feeling mentally fatigued. Boost in confidence. There's a powerful psychological effect in proving to yourself that you can resist temptation. It's akin to a weightlifter who starts small but gradually adds more plates. With every successful day, your self-belief grows, creating a positive feedback loop of self-esteem. Improved emotional stability. Because you're not constantly chasing highs and lows, your mood can level out. Stress becomes more manageable, and you find healthier ways to cope with setbacks, like a Stoic calmly weathering a storm. Enhanced physical vitality. Some men report feeling more energetic overall, waking up refreshed, or experiencing renewed passion for physical fitness. Whether this is purely psychological or also hormonal is up for debate, but the subjective reports are compelling. Deeper relationships. Instead of isolating yourself behind the quick fix of self-indulgence, you may feel more inclined to foster real connections. Friendships, family ties, and romantic relationships might take on a richer quality because you're fully present. None of these outcomes are guaranteed, of course. Every individual is different, but these reported benefits are significant enough to make skeptics pause. If even half of them turn out to be legitimate, it's worth investigating whether this one habit is holding you back from unlocking a better version of yourself. Section 12. The controversies and criticisms. Is it really worth it? As with any movement that challenges societal norms, critics are vocal. They say stressing over self-control can create anxiety, or that demonizing a natural urge can lead to shame. They warn that the Stoic path, if taken too rigidly, can suppress authentic emotions. Indeed, some have taken abstinence to extremes, falling into black-and-white thinking that can alienate them from loved ones and daily joys. It's essential to remember that moderation and balance were also part of the Stoic teachings. Marcus Aurelius never suggested you lock yourself away. He simply advocated not letting pleasure become the central pursuit in life. The same principle applies today. The goal isn't to live in perpetual austerity, but to ensure that your actions align with your principles and long-term aspirations. Then there's the argument that you can live a fulfilling life while still indulging occasionally. That might be true for many. The key question is whether you find yourself unable to moderate. If you've tried and failed repeatedly, or if you feel this habit is eroding your motivation and happiness, a more decisive break might be necessary. at least for a while. Another point of debate revolves around mental health. Some experts highlight that in certain cases, self-indulgence might be a symptom of deeper emotional issues. Quitting the habit without addressing the root cause, like anxiety, depression, or unresolved trauma, might only mask the problem. Stoic philosophy can help, but sometimes therapy, medication, or professional support is crucial. It's not an either-or proposition. You can integrate Stoic lessons while also seeking the modern help you need. Section 13. Practical tips for sticking to the path. If you're fired up to attempt a life free from this habit, or at least to cut back significantly, here are some Stoic-inspired suggestions. Create barriers. Don't rely solely on willpower. If you've identified certain triggers, like late-night internet browsing, set up practical obstacles. Turn off devices at a certain time or use apps that block specific sites. Mindful morning routine. Start your day with a quick reflection. Remind yourself of your ultimate goal and the reasons you chose this path. It sets a resolute tone for the day. Shift your environment. Spend time in settings that reinforce discipline, maybe a library, a co-working space, or around people who prioritize growth. Being surrounded by like-minded individuals can drastically reduce temptations. Frequent self-check-ins. Throughout the day, pause for 30 seconds and ask, am I still on track with my purpose? This consistent internal dialogue mirrors the Stoic practice of continual self-awareness. Celebrate milestones. Instead of punishing yourself for small slips, acknowledge the progress you've made. If you've gone a full week without giving in, that's a win worth noting. Small achievements compound. Stay busy, stay purposeful. Whether it's physical training, creative work, or building a business, have a go-to activity that channels your energy constructively. If your free time is meaningful, you're less likely to crave quick dopamine hits. Section 14. The surprising role of community and storytelling. In ancient Rome, Stoics often gathered to share insights, debate, and refine one another's thinking. That sense of camaraderie helped them stay accountable. Today, platforms exist where people share experiences, advice, and even daily journals documenting their battles against compulsive habits. While these online spaces aren't perfect and can sometimes veer into dogmatic preaching, they serve a vital purpose for those who need encouragement and fresh perspectives. A powerful aspect of community is hearing others' stories. You might read about someone who was spiraling, unemployed, and depressed, then slowly climbed out of that pit by cutting out constant self-pleasure and focusing on a new skill. Story after story can create a ripple effect, inspiring you to hold out through tough times, reminding you that setbacks are normal, and proving that real transformation is possible if you stay consistent. That sense of shared struggle also normalizes your journey. You realize you're not alone or uniquely flawed. Countless others wrestle with the exact same urges. When you stop seeing yourself as broken and start seeing yourself as part of a community on a mission, it becomes easier to keep going. The Stoics weren't big on self-pity. They believed in acceptance of circumstances and diligent effort to improve. Engaging with a supportive network is a modern interpretation of that principle. Accept that you have this struggle and diligently work to overcome it with others' help. Section 15. The bigger picture. It's not just about quitting. Here's where we tie it all together. The real power of overcoming this habit doesn't just lie in the act of quitting itself. It's about what you become capable of once you're no longer chained to quick fixes. Imagine channeling the energy you normally squander into building something significant, learning a demanding skill, sculpting a physique you're proud of, tackling a bold entrepreneurial venture, or simply rediscovering genuine joy in your relationships. For many, this is the eye-opening moment. Once they cut out daily indulgences, they suddenly have time and mental space to flourish. Projects that seemed intimidating no longer feel insurmountable. Conversations become richer because they're not constantly distracted or zoning out. Some people describe it as waking up from a fog that had muted their senses for years. The Stoics saw self-mastery as the foundation for all other virtues: courage, justice, wisdom, and so forth. If you can't even govern your own desires, how can you truly be a force for good in the world? If you're stuck in a cycle of pleasure-seeking, how can you rise to the occasion when life demands greatness from you? By removing one major pitfall, you free yourself to embrace the best version of you, the version who can take on challenges fearlessly and leave a mark on the world. So here we are, at the crossroads. You've learned that this seemingly small, harmless habit might be draining your vitality, messing with your motivation, and quietly eroding the foundations of your confidence. You've seen that centuries of Stoic wisdom point to a single conclusion: real power is forged in the furnace of self-restraint, and you've caught a glimpse of the lives transformed by quitting, or at least drastically reducing, this one behavior. Now the question is, what will you do with this information? Will you shrug it off, telling yourself it doesn't apply to you, or will you stand up and test these ideas for yourself? Will you keep searching for quick pleasure that leaves you emptier each time, or will you rise to the challenge of discovering what you're truly capable of? This choice isn't trivial. It might be the difference between living at half capacity, constantly drained, constantly distracted, and living at your full potential, armed with unwavering discipline and a laser-focused mind. Only you can decide which path you'll take. But if you choose the Stoic way, remember, it's not about perfection or punishing yourself. It's about regaining control of your most precious resource, your energy, and directing it toward what truly matters. If you're ready to make that shift, take it one day at a time. Learn your triggers, shift your focus to meaningful work, and watch how your confidence grows when you keep your promises to yourself. You might be surprised at how quickly your life can change once you stop giving away your strength to a habit that offers nothing in return but momentary relief. Consider this your invitation to a grand experiment. If the Stoics are right, you stand to gain clarity, power, and a sense of purpose like you've never felt before. If you're still skeptical, that's okay too. Let curiosity guide you. Try it, see the effects firsthand, and keep what works. After all, real wisdom comes from experience. And should you decide to embark on this path, know that you're not alone. A growing number of people are already walking it, reclaiming their energy and shaping extraordinary lives in the process. So here's the final challenge. Dare to break free. Dare to take back the reins of your mind. Dare to see what your life looks like when you're operating on your own terms, rather than giving in to impulses on autopilot. And remember, the greatest men in history, leaders, artists, innovators, didn't achieve their dreams by being slaves to passing whims. They rose above temptation, honed their focus, and poured their passion into pursuits that changed the world. Now it's your turn to do the same. If you found this perspective compelling, or if you want to explore more ways to cultivate self-mastery, stick around. There's a whole universe of insights, from ancient wisdom to modern science, waiting to help you become the most dynamic, disciplined version of yourself. Subscribe for more content like this, because your journey to real freedom, power, and transformation begins now.